Hey there, it's Pete over at the Sampleist, and today we're checking out Fantasy from Sonokinetic. Sonokinetic have added to their brilliant phrase-based libraries with Fantasy, which promises all kinds of orchestral wizardry. If you make magical or fantasy-themed music, this library certainly is worth checking out. It features full orchestral sections, and these are strings, woodwinds, brass and melodic percussion. It's recorded in 24-bit format at 44.1k kilohertz. There are over 17,000 samples. It downloads at 13 gigabytes and requires the free Contact Player and is also NKS compatible. Currently, Fantasy is on sale for €199.90, and after the intro price, it will go up to €249.90. Now, in this video, I'll be doing an overview of Fantasy, and then I've composed a short demo with it and combined it with other Sonokinetic instruments and also general instruments from my composing toolkit, just to see how it all fits together in a real-world composition. So let's jump straight in. And here we have Fantasy, and I've loaded it up in complete control, which is great for me because I use a S61, so I'm right at home with all my keys, lovely and color-coded. If you've used other Sonokinetic libraries, you'll be greeted with a GUI that looks very, very familiar. But let's hear exactly what it sounds like straight out the box. On your left-hand side, you have your blue keys, so I'm going to hold down a D chord, but nothing happens until I press one of the orange keys, which will trigger a phrase. Lovely and straightforward. Now, they are tempo synced to your DAW, and when you hear the composition, you'll see it all works beautifully. But I'm just sort of changing them slightly off the beat, so it's not as even as it would be when you actually use them. Now you can stack these phrases up. So you can just randomly hold down whatever you want. Let's just see what this sounds like. Beautiful. There's a whole arrangement just by pressing a couple of keys. Let's do another one. Oh, it's just lovely. Yeah, really, really cool stuff going on. And you can hear instantly it is all about magic. And it, you know, it's called Fantasy because it sounds not just fantastic, but obviously with all of the magical scoring elements you'd expect. And it's a whole lot of fun to use. Now, let's just see exactly how it works. We've got our first C phrase up here. Okay. Now, if I want to change that, you just click on the image. And I love kind of the diagrams, I guess, which show what's going to happen. So this is going to be like a little bit wavy and then go into like a big, I don't know, fluty curl or something. Anyway. So obviously it's a glissando, and yeah, it sounds lovely. And the categories are great. So it's not like older Sonokinetic libraries where you load the strings separately, the brass separately, or the woods, which is not a problem because I like working like that. But you can have the same instrument but multiple different sections. So with strings, if I go to Wizardy and just click a cool little preview, I could load that. And that's now on that C1 for that phrase. And then let's say I want to change the next phrase. Let's keep it wizardy. And let's keep it with strings. So I've got those two now. Nice and straightforward. And then, of course, now we've got two phrases locked in, you can use the mod wheel. Nice and easy. So you can have that sort of level of control. And like I say, these are human performances. And they sound absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of using phrase-based libraries. Now, you can see the strings, you've got all of these different categories. So if I just play some examples, here's some Elvish. And they're instant arrangements, which is beautiful. Bit of flight. We've got some forest. Some majestic. A little bit of mist. Waterfall. It's on the bloom section now. And finally onto sparkle. Okay. Now here's the thing. All of these you can MIDI drop if you want to. And if I quickly click onto the question mark, it will help you learn how to do that. And of course, anything else within Fantasy. So if you're not entirely sure what you're doing, click on this and you can get in there. Now, there's a lot of different settings, and I love the fact you can purge what you don't need. So, I mean, the memory footprint is quite small anyway, which is quite amazing. But this just gives you a general overview of things you can do. We've got different sort of mixer presets. You can do lots of different randomizing. Yeah, really, really useful. So if you click on 5, which is displays the chord, the score, and then you can actually drag in the MIDI from here. So you select what you want, or you play in what you want, and then you pick up the MIDI. I'm not going to do it right now, but you can see you can drag it in and drop it onto different instruments. Now, personally, I do that sometimes if I want to double parts or change, you know, add some variation, because obviously it's not a playable instrument like a, you know, sort of traditional, it's phrase based. But I tend to just sort of stick with what's in here. because they sound great and they work beautifully together. But the MIDI drop is really, really important. Now, I'm not going to go through every single function of the instrument. It's more important to hear what it sounds like. But your randomize buttons are here, and the mixer presets are here. You've got 4 different microphones. So again, you know, if you want it really, really close and add your own reverb, that's cool. If you want it really spacey and use the same room sound, you can go more wide or balcony. So nice and easy. But let's get back to the sounds. So that's the strings. We've got woodwinds. So again, same categories. In fact, I'm going to cycle through these using or the randomize. Now I'd say we actually randomized to brass there. Let's just stick with woodwinds. So majestic. Love the sound. So some woods. I've gone straight into brass. Just interrupted myself. I was about to say that. I mean, that is amazing. I'm holding down one key and I've got a whole arrangement. Like a sort of fanfare going on. I just absolutely love it. And I love these little diagrams. Very artistic. So on the percussion now. Whoops. And again, these are all MIDI droppable. So you can see that's quite a complex part, but it's all there for you, and you just drop it into your DAW. Lovely. But again, I love the samples. I just think they sound brilliant. I mean, come on, that is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, that's just a really quick overview of some of the phrases. There are lots to go through, and that's the joy of Sonokinetic libraries. As I say, I use a lot of them, and I've never used every single phrase, not even close, but there's always something there that I really need. Now, you can press these yellow keys, which will change the banks of what you're saving. There we go. Yep, at the top. And then the green keys are the harmonic shift keys. So if you're playing, let's say I've got my old trusty D. Whoops, it's going to move up an octave. So I've set a D. Use this one because it's nice and easy to hear. So I'm playing that C there. That puts us in root position. And you can see by using harmonic shift, you're playing, without changing the chords, you're playing the chords in key. So I've got a D, F sharp minor, A major, B minor. And it takes a little bit getting used to, but it's a really, really cool feature. So again, I use that a lot. as I said, it is a quick overview of Fantasy. I really recommend popping over to Sonokinetic and checking out their really detailed videos. Now, I've reviewed quite a few Sonokinetic instruments in my time and gone through the functions so many times. I don't want to bog us down with that, because where these libraries shine, aside from their, great sampling and they're so easy to use, it's when you put them into a composition and they suddenly make your composition sound human. It sounds like real performers, because they are real performances from a real orchestra, and that is, for me, worth its weight in gold. So I've created a quick 1.5 minute composition, and the reason I say quick is because once you get your thematic content down, you are pretty much copy and pasting what you're going to be using from the Sonokinetic libraries. And I've paired Fantasy up with Largo because I think they work really well together, and I'll explain about that later. And then, of course, I've used just general instruments from my composing toolkit to create a dressed composition. So when I say dress, it means that I'm using, I think, 13 Sonokinetic tracks or instruments, and I'm using other instruments around those to create a full composition. So yeah, let's check it out, and then I'm going to talk about how Fantasy is to compose with. Composing with Sonokinetic libraries is not only a lot of fun, but it's really, really straightforward. And it's also a great way to get a human performance element into your compositions, because these, of course, are performances from a real life orchestra. It's not MIDI instruments stacked upon each other and sampled. They are proper performances. Now, I use these as a sort of backbone or the core of my compositions, and then I will sort of add more instruments around them. So I've used Fantasy, obviously, because that's the library we're looking at, and I've paired it up with Largo. Now, Largo is the first Sonokinetic library that I ever bought, so many, many years ago, and I bought it specifically for a project, and it worked incredibly well, and I've been hooked ever since. And then, of course, once I've got my backbone sorted out, I will dress it with different instruments. So I've got playable woods, brass, strings, harp, xylophone, got some runs, and also percussion. So if I just play the intro. Really straightforward intro. If I just solo the Fantasy and the Largo sections. I love the little flurries, like the harp flurries in Fantasy. They sound cool. Absolutely love that. But you can hear you've got a very steady backbone already, or core, or foundation, whatever you want to call it. If I go into the main section, once I got my chord progression, it was really, really easy to compose with. And you can see I'm just using standard chords and the sustain pedal. Because if you have the sustain pedal on, it will just play whatever chords you put in, but you don't have to draw them in really accurately or hold them in. They're not based on velocity, so that's why a lot of these are blue. And they just sound like this. Well, that was soloed. I'm just going to solo that again. Of course, it stops because I stopped using the sustain pedal, and it works perfectly well across all instruments. So all I've done is copy and pasted the same MIDI part into different instruments, and boom, you're done. The only difference is when I put the low brass in, for example, which is just a great sort of bass line. All I had to do was add the patch, so the key that's going to trigger that brass part. And then, because I just copied and pasted that across different instruments when I was doing the high brass, I just changed the same C sharp to a different phrase. Lovely. And same for the bass. So you'll notice it's still C sharp. There we go. And then finally, the Fantasy Strings Wizardy is exactly the same. It's C sharp. So it's really, really quick. Once I had my initial chord progression, it took a matter of minutes just to build this section up. And then, like I say, it's just a case of adding your own instruments and own melodies. So if I just solo my playable strings. So of course, if I was to play the main section without the sort of dressed up parts. Yes, the composition's there and the melody's there, but it sounds incredibly empty. If I then add, also I could just done that really, really quickly. If I add Fantasy and Largo, go back to the start of the section. Yeah, the difference is absolutely massive. You go from quite a small, I'm not going to say lifeless, but a very, I'll try to think, not as kinetic performance using just these. Yeah, all the life and the movement and the human quality is from Fantasy and Largo. And that's why I use these. And I do use them a lot. I think they're fantastic. And that is Fantasy. I think it's great. There's so much going on with it. It is just instant magic, and that's what you want. I made this composition really, really quickly, and I found it really, really straightforward to use. I'd love to extend it, and I probably will do. And I do a fair amount of fantasy writing. So, as I say, these are toolkits for your compositions. And I do see the argument, and I think I've addressed this before, where people say, well, if you buy these phrase-based libraries, you're all going to sound the same, so they're not worth it, and they're rubbish. Total nonsense. I keep using the term they're tools because you're going to use them as a basis and you're going to dress them, or you might find little melodic fragments and you're going to use MIDI drop and put those into different instruments, which I did here with one of the woodwind melodies. And it's all about how you use them. If you buy Sonokinetic phrase-based libraries and solely use those and expect to make dynamic, there we go, compositions, it's not going to happen. You need to add to them. You need to build upon them. And that's what they're for. And they are brilliant. So I recommend going to the Sonokinetic website and checking out their demos. So you can all see a dressed version and then a library only version. And you can see how other composers are using them. And those demos are absolutely brilliant. And they really sold me a lot of libraries. And just so pleased that I picked them up. The final question is, do I recommend Fantasy by Sonokinetic? And it's a wholehearted yes. If you make magical music or fantasy-based music, it's a great instrument to have in your toolkit. It's so easy to use and it locks in with other Sonokinetic instruments. I've demonstrated you can just copy and paste the same MIDI and make minor changes to the instrument, and suddenly within minutes you've got a complete arrangement. But above all else, it adds the human element to your compositions. And a lot of the time when I'm working with these, I'll start off, I'll get my harmony in, get my chord progressions, and then I'll think, at some point I'll go back and take the Sonokinetic phrases out. I might MIDI drop them to other instruments and change them, or I might just remove them completely. And every single time I end up keeping them in there because they sound brilliant. They give the human quality, they give the movement, they give the life to the composition. And that's really what I use them for. Yes, they sound great, and the arrangements, you could spend hours just arranging one simple phrase where all you got to do is hold down a chord and play a note. But not only are they a time saver, they add a huge amount of quality to your work as well. So yeah, really, really pleased. Sonokinetic have done an amazing job. It's just a lovely instrument to use, but I could say that about all of their phrase-based libraries as well. Thank you once again for checking out this composing with an overview of Sonokinetic's Fantasy. If you like what you heard, feel free to drop a like on the video and leave a comment. Talk to us about what you think is great about the instrument and how you might use it. If you've not done so already, please check out our other videos. We're trying a different format now. So yeah, we appreciate all comments about that as well. And also subscribe to our channel. And if you've not done so already, head over to sampleist.com to see what's going on in the world of virtual instruments. And then, of course, get back in the studio and keep making that music. Until next time, have a great day and take care.